Regular meeting of the Northmore ISD Board of Trustees. It's Monday, January 10th at 6 p.m. And we will start with the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be led by Ms. Daughtry and the Pledge of Allegiance by the Fine Arts Department.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you that we have the freedom to gather here tonight. I thank you, dear Lord, for the blessings that you give us. I pray, dear Lord, for our school district. I pray for our students, our staff, our community. God, be with those that are grieving. God, be with those that are ill. God, be with all of us as we try to make the decisions that can best suit our needs and meet the needs of those that really count. Forgive us of our sins, dear Lord. Strengthen and guide us. In your precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Tonight we have members of our Fine Arts Department. We have Steve Hoskins and Brady Wilkins for our pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, public testimony. No one signed up for public testimony. Public forum. Okay. Okay, the next item on our agenda is public comment. This is the time for citizens, staff, or students to provide their comments to the board. Comments from the audience will not be permitted during other portions of the meeting. Please note that unless an individual's comments relate to an item on the agenda, the board is not allowed to respond other than to provide factual information or recite existing policy. To have your comments heard tonight, your name and the subject matter of your comments must be written on the sign-in sheet prior to the start of the meeting. The sign-in sheet is located in the front of the meeting room. Each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes unless the presiding officer determines it is necessary to make adjustments to the board's procedures for effective meeting management or to accommodate large numbers of persons wishing to address the board. However, an individual who wants to speak on an item on the agenda will not be given less than 1 minute to speak. If a group of people want to be heard on the same topic, the board asks that they designate a spokesperson to avoid needless repetition. The board shall allot no more than 30 minutes for the public comment portion of the meeting. The presiding officer shall determine whether an individual addressing the board has attempted to solve a matter administratively through resolution channels established by policy. If not, the individual shall be referred to the appropriate policy to seek resolution, DGBA, FNG, or GF. The board shall not tolerate disruption of the meeting by members of the audience. If, after at least one warning from the presiding officer, any individual continues to disrupt the meeting by his or her words or actions, the presiding officer may request assistance from law enforcement officials to have the individual removed from the meeting. As the presiding officer, I will strictly enforce these procedures. With those cautions in mind, we will now be pleased to hear the public comments. And Ms. Bright, you are first.
Thank you. Is it on? I'm Dr. Bright. I am one of the English instructors at North Lamar High School. And as a follow-up to last month's school board meeting, the department thought this would be an appropriate time to share the reading materials that have been used in our department for the first semester, either in their entirety or as carefully curated excerpts. At the freshman level, our students covered The Giver, Anthem, Sound of Thunder, Most Dangerous Game, Harrison Bergeron, The Necklace, Still I Rise, Do Not Go Gentle, The Road Less Taken, Mother to Son, excerpt from Dracula, excerpt from The Hot Zone. At the sophomore level, Lamb to the Slaughter, excerpt from A Long Walk to Water, excerpt from Crash, excerpt from Riding Freedom, excerpt from Hatchet, excerpt from Hope Was Here, The Veldt, The Interlopers, Baby, Baby, Red, Red Rose, Fish Cheeks, Auschwitz, Elie Wiesel. Death Marches, Liberation, Night, excerpt from The Count of Monte Cristo, Of Mice and Men, A Raisin in the Sun, The Grapes of Wrath, The Great Gatsby, The Scarlet Letter, The Crucible, Into the Wild. At the junior level, The World on the Turtle's Back, excerpt from Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, excerpt from the interesting narrative of the life of Aloda Equiana, The Crucible, excerpt from The Bluest Eye, The Declaration of Independence, excerpt from The Crisis, Fall of the House of Usher, A Rose for Emily, excerpt from Nature, excerpt from Song of Myself, The Awakening. The seniors have covered Beowulf, Prologue to the Canterbury Tales, and the stories The Pardoner's Tale, The Wife of Bath's Tale, The Miller's Tale, Anglo-Saxon Riddles, Barbara Allen, Get Up and Bar the Door, Robin Hood and the Three Squires, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, a selection from Le Morte d'Arthur, 1984, Les Miserables, Frankenstein, Notes from the Underground, As I Lay Dying, Song of Solomon, The Kite Runner, The Metamorphosis, and King Lear. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bright. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, consent agenda. Did everyone have a chance to look over the past? Okay. Any questions? Okay. We'll need a motion.
I move we consent the agenda.
Okay, motion made by Sheila, seconded by Red. Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. And moving on to item 6, A, discussion only, attendance and enrollment. Mr. Watson.
Okay, in your board book, you should have had the enrollment for as of January the 6th. And at Higgins, we are at 345. At Everett, 269. Parker, 236. Bailey, 289. Stone at 541. And the high school at 700. Overall, district-wide, it was 2 more than we had in December. Our ADI enrollment is similar to that. We were up 2.5 students for the month of January from December. Our refined ADA as of January the 6th was at 2159.3, and we finally got up to 94.14%. You know, we've been at 92 for a while, 93, and we were doing really good. And of course, it's gone down a little bit this month already, but we're hoping it doesn't drag us down too dead, because we really want it to be at least 94, something like we were last year, or even 95 is our goal, is to get it up to 95. But with that number, the 2159 is 52 more students than we budgeted, so we're still in good shape on the budget. Anybody have any questions on the enrollment numbers or anything else that deals with enrollment?
Thank you. Okay, B is discussion only, the bond update with Mr. Strain with Park Hill.
Real quick, before we get started, we had a little technical difficulty. I was going to give you guys a handout, but I'm just going to put it on the screen real quick. So while this is warming up, what I do want to say is I came down today. We came and looked at all the various projects that you have in construction right now, mainly the softball field. There you go. It's going to be a little harder to see, but I'll explain to you. Okay, so Let me go back for just a minute. Let's just start with the new elementary school. So we are 50% complete with our construction documents. That's the last phase that we go through before we put it out for bid. We still expect that project to go out on time to bid in the April timeframe. Currently, HWH and Park Hill, we're all doing a really big cost exercise right now. That's typical at this stage in a project. That way, if we're out of scope or if anything in the budget has gotten out of line, we try to take care of that before we issue it out for a bid package. So I'm hoping by the next board meeting we'll have a little bit more update on that. But we have probably about 9 or 10 people working on that cost estimate right now. So that's the current update on that. Just to let you all know also, we did receive the site survey the last week of December. So we're able to progress on the site design. We also received the geotech report the last week of December. That geotech report's really important because it helps us establish your pavement sections on how we design those. Based on the geotech's recommendations, we also got a lot of information on the borings for the foundations. Our structural team is currently working with the geotech engineer to come up with a few different strategies on their foundations. One of the things that we did encounter in there that we were not sure that we would find is there's some groundwater about 20 to 22 feet down that we found in some of the borings. So I can have more information on that at the next meeting, but just want to give you a quick update there. We do expect to have a few different foundation systems to evaluate, and we'll be meeting on that soon. Frankstone Middle School improvements. That is another project that we've been actively working on for a summer alteration project. What I can tell you is we're thinking mid-March was when we had planned to put that project out to bid. It'll take about a month, maybe 45 days to procure and get that project officially going. So you can expect some summer construction going on over at Frankstone. The HVAC units project over for Frankstone, we have the HVAC units in the warehouse, although we're waiting on some curb adapters so that they can go actually replace the units. Once they have those, they'll go over there and finish that work. So there's a little bit of work already going on up there. High school improvements, the HVAC units are pretty much complete. I think there's a few little odds and ends that they're finishing up there. We did see HWH's truck out there this afternoon. Looked like they were finishing up. The intercom project is scheduled to start tomorrow, I believe. Where's Rick at?
They started tonight.
They started tonight. So, and the delay on that was just there were some parts and pieces that they didn't have, and they were waiting on them to get here. That's the reason for that slight delay there. I know wood floors is a topic that we want to talk about. If y'all are okay, I'd like to get through a couple of other things real quick and come back to that. But I did come over early today, 1 o'clock. We spent quite a bit of time looking at the wood floors in the high school. And I've got some photographs. I'll pull those up here in just a minute. I might have to blow this up a little bit more for you to see that. I'll come back to that. Parker Elementary School. We are working on an HVAC unit replacement over there. It's currently in pricing. Hopefully we'll have that going within the next 30 days. And then your athletic field projects. Softball field improvements are looking very good. I don't know if y'all been over there or not, but that sod and all the other work that Symmetry's done with Rick and everybody else's help is looking great. It is getting close to finishing. I believe baseball is next, starting with baseball.
Yes, after baseball season.
Okay. And then the drainage around the indoor has been, I'm going to say, mostly completed. They have a little bit of grass to go back and plant, a few areas to take care of, but that's pretty much tidied up and almost complete. So any questions on any of that other than the wood floor? Before I go on, I want to give you a little bit of updates on inflation and what we're seeing in the market. Okay.
Did you say the baseball is going to start Soon, is that what you said?
After Buster season.
After baseball season? Okay.
Yes. I have it as May 16th. Is that still right, May 16th?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so just like every meeting, I try to give you guys an update on what's going on in the construction market, especially as it relates to price inflations and things like that. Just going to continue to try to bring what I know each board meeting. These reports that I'm giving you, the data is delayed just a little bit. Supposedly they just released another report this week, although I don't have it just yet, so I'm giving you information through August of 2021. So if you'll see this first image, this was the same figure that I showed you the last time I was here. Just want you to see the main thing that you need to look at is that blue line that goes across the bottom. That's the bid price for new non-residential construction, and where we were seeing inflation at the time, it was 0.5% over what was expected at the time. That's the time that we set your budgets for the bond. And then this figure shows April 2020 through August 2021. And you can see that between February and August, it had gone up from 0.5 to 5.2%. So it was a really unusual year. You can see all the other lines are very specific things like steel mill products, lumber and plywood, but that blue line at the bottom is really kind of a composite of everything for bid prices. So we saw about a 4.7% jump over what everybody in the industry was expecting at that point in time. So now we are tracking these, just like I've told you before. I look at it weekly. I have a few different contract partners and estimators that's all they do outside of Park Hill, and we talk about these things on a regular basis. Again, just want to give you an update on what we know. There are some supply chain issues. I believe Kelly knows what I'm talking about. I think you'll try to procure a few things yourself to find out that there are delays right now. So this is happening to everybody across the board, all throughout the United States. Some projects where we built strategies about how we order things and how we've designed things, we've not seen as many shortages, but if we take traditional routes, we have found that sometimes you got to wait. You know, what might have been a 4-week lead time traditionally might be a 16 or 20-week lead time. And that's just not going to read these specifically, but that's basically what the report is talking about in there. Just as a reminder, we're looking ahead as far as we can ahead on these things for all of your projects. Not just the ones coming up, but also the ones that you have down towards the end of your construction schedule, like Everett and some of those other projects as well. I did throw the consumer price index in here. That's just inflation since 1991. They didn't have 2021 listed on here yet, but I think most everybody knows it was 6.8%. And if you look, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. On average, over the last decade, it was 2.43%. And so that was right there within the averages that we typically plan by. Out in Texas, we're 1.9% is what we're looking for usually. Here it was 2.43. We planned your projects at 3% inflation per year. We thought that was being liberal at the time, but we saw 6.8% at the close of last year. And through various reports and resources, we've heard two or three different things. A lot of people in the construction industry are thinking that inflation is going to stabilize this year to 2 or 3%, going to get us back to where we were. What that means is interest rates are going to go back up on short-term loans and things like that. But we've also heard that there's a possibility it might stay at 7% for a few months. So that's all speculation right now, just giving you what we know, and we'll continue to do that. Any questions on inflation or supply chain issues that are out there?
Can we get a copy of that where we can read it?
I will definitely do that. I'm sorry, I had some tech issues. We were trying to print it beforehand, but I'll make sure you get a copy of it. Yes, sir. Bo, do you mind me asking, are y'all having shortages and price increases right now?
Bad.
Yeah. So we're kind of seeing that everywhere. I read another report that came out just this morning. They think that we're going to rebound on the second quarter of the calendar year. I don't know if that's true. They told us that last year too. So only time will tell. But we're trying to get Frank Stone and the new elementary, trying to get it out there, test the waters on that so we can get it done sooner than later for those. Okay, so just took a couple of photos while we were out there. This is a softball field. I'm sure everybody's been out there. It's looking great. They're about to put up the net, I think, starting tomorrow. Is that right?
I think we're supposed to start tomorrow with Ed.
They've got the sod down. The infield is pretty much complete. The back fence is out there. It just needs to be trimmed out. It looks wonderful. When we were out there today, they were doing some fencing, pouring some concrete. They're working on the bullpen over on the west side of the field. Is there anything else you would like to add to that for softball?
I think that's about it, except for the trim on the top of the fence. They're painting it on the inside, and they're gonna bring it, put it up after it's painted. The double gates on that end, we're having some repair work on those in the shop. That will be put back up sometime at the end of the week. After they pour the pudding, Tiger will be back to put the chain link material back up. And then all we like is bleachers and clean it up.
It's looking real nice. I have to come out for that first game. Okay, just a couple more pictures of the indoor. You can see where they backfilled, where they dug out. So they're about 95, 98% complete out there. It's a little wet right now, but they'll get dried up. We're going to put some grass back down to help with the drainage that's behind there. Okay. Before I go on to wood floors, any questions about the other projects that y'all have going on?
How long will they have to stay off that softball field before they get on it to play?
Rick, do you happen to know the answer to that?
What? I'm sorry.
How long will it be before they're able to get on the softball field and play?
We're supposed to be through by the 1st of February. Symmetry is going to release it to us and tell us when the girls can be on it. We're on schedule, and unless something happens, we get a lot of rain, they'll be able to get on it, 1st of February, first week of February. I think our first home game is
February.
Yeah. The only reason we can't get on it now is because that sod has to silk in.
Yeah.
And we got to get that done, and they're top dressing it. We got to top dress it twice, and stuff like that. Otherwise, other than that, you can't really have them practicing on the field with all that construction work going on. But 1st of February.
Okay, wood floor. So my understanding over the Christmas break, we had a buckle pop up. This is an image of it here. And I'm sorry, it's not the greatest image, but a couple things I do want to go over that I saw while we were out here. So first of all, this is the end zone field, right there on underneath the goal. These are volleyball standards where you pull the lid up and you're able to put the volleyball posts in there that to put out the nets. These are 2 practice standards. This one we found out was misplaced at one point, or we think it was misplaced at one time, and it was left there, and another one was put in place right here. And what I can tell you, I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. This standard is not installed right, and that's really the culprit of your problem. So what we found here, and you can see where it's kind of a dark color, where the grain of the wood has kind of soaked up a lot of moisture. There's a lot of moisture infiltration coming from underneath that floor up through that volleyball standard. Because typically those standards, once we put them in, they're a tube, and the bottom of the tube is capped. And so there's no air or moisture or anything that's able to come up through that tube. Well, in the case of this one, it's wide open in the bottom. So any and all the moisture that's underneath that slab in there is coming right up under that floor, and unfortunately, it's damaging your floor there. So So you can see what happened here is a lot of the moisture and air has come through here. And you know that, once, if you're inside of a space like we're in here right now, we have a certain temperature that we like, as humans to be in. That's what's underneath that concrete floor is much cooler. And so once that air comes up and gets underneath the floor, it'll condensate. And once it condensates, that's how the moisture gets in everything. And that's what you see here. So the wood expanded. That's why it buckled out. Now, this whole area that you see is actually, there were multiple places in here where we saw, you kind of have the main buckling that's happening right here, about 4 inches, maybe 5 inches tall. We saw some damage to the subfloor in there as well. But one of the things I did notice, like in certain areas, like right here, for example, the floor was extremely squishy. It was not firm like it should be. That's a subfloor problem. Some of these other areas, the floor is not flat there either. It looks okay, but when you really get over there and you're feeling around on it, it's kind of wavy, which that could be a problem on the playing surface, especially if you're wanting to prevent injuries and such. So it's not really just this one spot that I noticed problem or potential, I'm going to call it a little bit of a safety item there. You really had multiple spots that were out here. Now, this buckling part here that we talked about, I was trying to evaluate if it was a good candidate for repair right now. I know you guys have a few games left. And this big area that you see here, that might need to be the area that you would need to replace all of that, including the subfloor. And the various reasons for that, again, that squishy area, you do want to get that out and fix that subfloor. Right here where where all the grain is turned black, when you pull that wood up, I think you're going to see a lot more moisture than what you're seeing on the top side. And I'm going to show you a couple more images real quick. This is, if I can get the zoom in, this is that volleyball standard. So you see right here, there's a hole. That hole right there is letting all the moisture come up. And then these are brass. So what happens to brass whenever you allow moisture on it? It'll turn the bluish color. And see, that's what you see all around here. In fact, there's a photo. I didn't get that photo from you, Rick, but I asked Rick when he cut that up over the weekend, like right when you cut it up, take a picture, turn everything over, take a picture, because if it has moisture on it, it'll dry in about 30 minutes or so. So he did, and the cover to this volleyball standard was wet, like obviously wet. So it was sweating really bad. And so what that means is all that moisture that's pulled up on that is going to go out and go underneath that floor as well. Okay. In fact, another observation that we noted today too, this standard is actually resting, instead of on the concrete, it's resting on a portion of the lower portion of the subfloor. So you have your main finished floor, 2 layers of subfloor, and then you have your vapor barrier, which is intended to keep the moisture out of the wood floor and the concrete. And so right here, if you're able to see this closely, there's some rotted floor up there, and that's what that volleyball standard is kind of sitting on. So I would not recommend using that volleyball standard until it's repaired or replaced, just because when you put the tension on those nets, we wouldn't want to see a failure on that particular piece of the court there and somebody get hurt.
Ask Rick something. Rick, is the fans working underneath there?
Yes, sir.
And the sump pump's working?
Yes, sir. What I think with Michael, and here's the thing, when they cut that ballard in, Bo, it's not solid. There's a hole in the bottom of that ballard.
Yeah, I know what happened. It's
so
poorly put in.
When they cut that hole, all that moisture's coming up under, and they also cut the vapor barrier. Okay, when they did that moisture's traveling straight up and going under. It wouldn't matter to me. I mean, we talked to Michael about it, and the engineers at Park Hill sit down. They want it underneath the gym floor and none of study. And the fans are doing what they're supposed to. We've talked about adding some more fans, but you're not ever going to get all that moisture out from underneath. That's why that vapor barrier is there, to keep that moisture from coming up. And that particular ballard be a circle and have a seam circle on it that would go down. That doesn't, it's square. In my opinion, I think it's homemade. And it doesn't have anything to keep the moisture from traveling down that floor. We had a lot of moisture, if y'all think about it, for about 14 days. You know, right before Christmas got here, and this is when this happened. We've had problems in the past, and if y'all remember when Charlie Martin was here, we got some pricing to fix, you know, get a new gym floor. We couldn't afford it at the time. But this has been an ongoing problem for the last 10 years. And that thing will come up and go back down, but this time it come up and wouldn't go back down. You know, and I had John Fowler come back. I had him come down over the break. Mr. Stewart had me call him out. He come down to look at it, and his opinion was the same as what Michael just explained to you.
Yeah, there's a lot of moisture buildup in this particular area. You can see there, it's cupped up. So typically, if the boards are bowing like this, you know, and you can see a visible bow on each one of the boards, they've dried out. When they cut, they've dried out. When they bow like this, and they've taken on excess moisture. And when that happens, they expand, and when they expand, this is what happens. I will tell you, it wasn't just in the finished boards, it was all the way down in all of the sub floor too. In fact, I asked them to cut a little bit more out today. That's in this photo right here. And the thing that kind of got my attention is this piece that we cut out, this piece right here. To the physical touch, it was very moist. And it had nails in it. I was able to pull the nails out with my bare hands. And I mean, that shouldn't be able to do that. So that subfloor, I don't even know if it would, I mean, without letting it dry out for a period of time, I don't know how much hold it's going to have. All the adhesives below the floor, all the glues have come apart. That's because that's due usually to the moisture. And so some issues there. Yes, sir.
Just like Mr. Landis said, back when Charlie was here, we got a report that the floor was trying to buckle on us. We got some prices. We was in the process of trying to pass bonds, and the gym was in the bond every time. And we said, well, maybe, and we got experts to look at it, and they said, well, maybe you can get through this season and you'll have the bond passed by that time. So this is something we've been dealing with the last 6 years. And I know there's parents upset about it, but I mean, it didn't just happen overnight. We passed the bond, and that's part of the bond to fix this gym. So just bear with us, folks. We're going to get it taken care of.
Yeah, and as far as that project, we had worked out with Kelly and her team to come back right after spring break. The whole idea was to get past basketball season, and we'd start taking that floor and getting it replaced for the next set of court sports. But unfortunately, I mean, this happened kind of at a tough time.
This is the worst I've seen it right there.
Yeah, this is the last thing I want to show you real quick. Once we pulled all that subfloor out, this is a photograph of, this is the vapor barrier. It's a thick plastic that we put down. If there are any kind of penetrations or holes in it, it will, obviously it's not doing its job. It's going to let that moisture come up to the wood floor. Well, here, it was already damaged a little bit when we were taking the floor up, so I opened it up a little bit more. I was curious if the concrete was saturated or not. It's going to be a little hard to see from where you're sitting, but there was a spot right here. I was pointing at it with the stick, and then right here, you could physically feel the moisture in the concrete. It was dark gray. Typically, when concrete's kind of dried out, it'll be more of a lighter gray color, but you could feel it, you could see it. So obviously there was moisture, a lot of moisture buildup right up under that vapor barrier, which is not totally uncommon, but it seemed to be a little bit more concentrated in this area where we're having the specific issue. Another thing, that area where it buckled, right here, if you stuck your hand in there underneath the boards, and I asked a few different people to do it, you could feel the air coming through, that cold air. And so what that's doing is it's just drawing that cold air up out of the, like below the floor, and then when it hits the warmer air inside the room, it's going to condensate. And so that's really the big problem. So any questions?
Can I ask, when that floor was first built, there were 4 areas for volleyball standards, and then are you saying that this other one got added after, the one that is creating the issue?
I'm kind of going on hearsay on that. I believe that is the case, that, and Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, this was placed, but we think that it was misplaced, so that one was for the other.
Okay, got it, okay. So when they put it in the floor, they put it in the wrong place, gotcha. And then they had-
And the first one is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, the first one was correct.
This one right here, when you take the cover off of it, it is built correctly.
But the hole was put in the wrong spot.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so when they
So
built
whenever we
it,
do the new gym, let's make sure
We'll be right.
you're in the right spot this time.
I'll be right. Okay.
Well, guys, this was, now, there was 2 ballards in the floor originally when the school was first built for your net for playing time. And then they added ballards the other way to have 2 separate practices going on. And so what happened, when they went to add them, they just mismeasured, so they couldn't take that one back up. So they had to add one, and that's where I go back to the other picture where I think they made one because,
So let's make sure it don't happen twice.
yes,
Yeah, so our plans for the replacement project is not only to replace the floor, we'll be replacing that vapor barrier too. That's just gonna be, anytime we replace a floor for that warranty, they're gonna want that vapor barrier. Those standards will probably, most likely, we're gonna be pulling all those standards out, replacing all of them, and then we'll be patching the concrete, the holes where the old standards were. So you'll be getting new ones, that should take care of, any issue of leakage around those, that'll take care of that. Once we pull the floor up, we'll have our team come out and do another field inspection of everything that's below the wood floor, just to take care of any other issues that we might find.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
There's also been a complaint, especially in the practice gym, because I know they had some issues where they had replaced the floor up there. And in the far corner towards the hallway that the students use, there's a good bit of it looks like moisture to me. But they'll complain about a thin film that forms on top of there, and you can get down there and see it. It's almost, I mean, it's to me, it seems like moisture. I mean, is this moisture issue getting under there also a contributor to this fine layer of slick film that referees fall on and students crash on that they complain about?
You mean on top of the floor, on the surface?
It's on top of the floor, and it's not just in this gym around this area here. It's in another part of the building altogether.
Now, I haven't seen specifically what you're talking about with my own eyes, but by the way you describe it to me, it sounds like a moisture issue where you've got some moisture that either it come up to the surface or in some other way it was on the surface of the floor, maybe it condensated there, and that would make it a little bit slippery. I did notice in a few areas in the main gym, I didn't go over to the practice gym today, but I did notice a few areas where the poly finish was damaged a little bit, and sometimes that is usually it's due to damage, but sometimes it's also due to moisture infiltration into the system as well. So it'll kind of bubble up and pop out, and then I'm sure when they clean the floor and all that, it doesn't sand it down necessarily, but it does smooth it out a little bit. I have a picture, I didn't put it in here, but there were some areas that we saw with that as well. So my guess is, to answer your question, is it probably is a little bit moisture coming up to the top, sitting on the top of the floor.
So this issue coming to the surface right now, like that we're talking about, is that going to throw a wrinkle into the planning process for replacing that floor, or is this beneficial timing in order to handle any additional costs that would be incurred with that?
If I understand your question right, I think this would be beneficial to you. I know it sounds like an inconvenience. It really kind of is, especially for any kids in their senior year right now that want to play on that floor. But in a way, if this hadn't have shown itself now, and we went and replaced the whole floor system, there's a chance that we might have missed something. But what I will tell you is, we would have noticed that standard when they pulled the floor off. And we did our inspection, we would see those things, we'd fix it in the field. But there's always a chance that, you know, if issues are popping up beforehand, it helps us make sure that that issue gets resolved when we do the replacement project. Does that make sense?
But I know what Clint's referring to. It's the far, far southeast corner of the practice gym, and you can see the wood is darker, the corner is more, and it's almost like an oily film that gets on that floor. And, I mean, through the years, there's been a lot of complaints about the oiliness of that slick. It's not just wet, it's like oily. I mean, and you know, it's been there for whatever reason. It's been there.
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, but that's a definite concern too, whether this other thing attributes to it or not. Something's going on in that corner.
There's moisture underneath it, just like
We did have a roof leak.
We had roof
We
leaks,
had a roof
many
leak
through the
there,
years.
We patched the floor. That roof leak there and one in the corner.
Yeah.
We did patch the floor. That roof leak, when it leaked, it come down inside the wall and
Yeah.
over in the gym floor. Well, the gym floor, when it was put in, there wasn't any room for movement. So when that floor started swelling, it started bubbling up. It did it again here about a month ago. And the particular place that they're talking about in that southeast corner, we had a leak 3 years ago that gave us some problems. We had the floor dried out by Servpro, but there's no guarantees that was a permanent fix at the time. Once again, we thought, you know, we were gonna get a bond passed and get some new floors in, which we are now. And that could be a fluctuation in temperature too. Mr. Spencer, a lot of times these gyms, you know, we have it now where we control the air in the gyms, where we keep it at a constant temperature. It will give it a milky look on top of that finish. And usually we have them redone, resurfaced at Christmas time, and then right before school starts. You know, with this new floor, that shouldn't be an issue when we get the new floors replaced at the high school.
So today, Mr. Landis, Mr. Klein, Mr. Key, Michael, and myself spent a lot of time examining the floor. Mr. Payne came and cut up more of the floor so that Michael could see more of the foundation as well as the subfloor where it's rotting. And we are all in agreement that this is not a quick patch. We've talked to a couple of companies. They do not want to touch this floor because they feel like it's a liability. So I honestly feel like that as of now, we don't patch it, we fix it right because we owe that to our students, and we do not want to find ourselves in a situation where we have an athlete that gets severely hurt.
I'm with you on that. Don't waste the money, fix it right.
Yeah, just to add that, some of those other spots were not as obvious, those soft spots and things like that, those concern me a little bit too on the play surface. You know, I'd hate to see, especially if you have an athlete that's at the top of the game right now, and they may be getting recruited, I'd hate to see somebody get injured over something like that, especially if we don't, you know, we spot checked those areas, we saw some of them, but there might be some others, maybe not localized to that spot as well.
You know, your gym floor gets thinner when you take it down past the brackets, okay? And every time you take it down past the brackets, you take some off the surface off of that playing floor. And from what we can see today, we've had a bunch, you know, it's been took down several times, so it's made it thinner. So for us to even try to get something, I've made phone call after phone call this afternoon, to get anything to go back, can't get anywhere. So, but there again, that floor it's been 1/8 of an inch shorter than what you got to replace the floor with. So there again, you have a trip hazard or a safety issue.
Yeah. So typically, a floor like this is usually going to be, it's a maple floor, it's a 2 1/4 board. A lot of times it's a 5 16 or a 1 inch. It's obviously been sanded down quite a few times. The thicknesses in that area varied a little bit, but they're around 3/4 of an inch. So just tell you, it's been sanded down a bunch of times. So y'all have seen a whole lot of life out of that floor for as long as you've had it.
Also, just make note that after visiting with Mr. Klein, We've decided that we're not going to rip the floor out until after basketball season because the basketball team is still able to use the south end of the gym as a practice area to play short court, and so we'll wait until they're finished using that before we begin tearing it up. Does anyone have any questions for Michael?
Any questions on anything else while I'm here? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item C, consideration and approval, joint election agreement between Northmore ISD and the City of Paris. Ms. Doyle?
Just needing the board to approve us to do another joint election this year between the City of Paris and North Lamar. We do it every year with them, and this year the election is on May 7th. I think it's actually the second Saturday of May, but I just need y'all's approval to do that again this year.
Okay, I need a motion. Oh,
I have a question.
go ahead.
It says approved by the trustees of the Paris Independent School District.
Yes, I have, yes. Ms. Ellis sent that to me, didn't realize that she had put North Lamar at the top and Paris at the bottom, so
Okay.
that has been corrected.
All right.
Yes, sir.
We'll approve it anyway.
Okay, do I have a motion? Motion made by Joel, seconded by Bo. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Ms. Doyle. Okay, and D, consideration and approval, elementary counselors' comprehensive plans. Ms. Chadwick?
So this is something that we've not done before in the past, so it's a little bit new, and I included in your board book one pager on understanding the Texas Senate Bill 179. And in that, it shows you the roles of school counselors, rationale for a comprehensive school counseling program, and appropriate and inappropriate activities for school counselors. So you have all of that right there. And this is in response to, like I said, Senate Bill 179, and it is in our board policy under DP legal, under school counselor duties, and it was amended January 19th, 2021. So we have 4 of the counselors here to present their comprehensive school counseling plan. The elementary counselors will present tonight, and next month we'll have the secondary counselors.
So I'm going to go first. Take this over. You're talking second, third there. So the purpose of the comprehensive school counseling program is to provide a framework for addressing students' educational, career, personal, and social development. In Everett's program, I've included all the current counselor duties, along with the curriculum, scope, and sequence for the year. This includes guidance, small group, individual counseling, and resources for outside counseling. Although there is a statement about addressing trauma over COVID, this is mainly addressed based on individual needs of the staff and students. At this age, we focus a lot on character development and behaviors. I'm aware that bullying can be an issue, especially as children grow older. Therefore, I stated how we address bullying at Everett. I do a guidance lessons and share with the students when, where, and how to report bullying at the school. This is under the student competency and conflict resolution. This program is a framework, and it often changes with life events. The goal is to improve on the implementation each year. So what I mean by that is this is a perfect world scenario program framework that we want to go by, but this is the second year that we've done it. And after the first year, you look back and you see what worked, what didn't work, what you didn't do well. And so there are a lot of things in there that, of course, personally, I want to work on to make better. But the most important thing is to make sure that our kids are taken care of every single day, and every day is different. So, anybody have any questions for me?
What is this? I mean, just this goes in, goes straight.
Yeah.
Well,
So
what? I mean, I
those
know
are-
that was used a lot through all of them.
They are, and Goes In is a program that I know that Ms. Kalupa does. she probably has a lot more experience with it, because I'm new that goes in. But I use it with some individual counseling. For instance, I have one student who he's OCD, and his hair is sticking up. He's just constantly, just a lot of things just bother him like that. And so in there's a part of that program. It's cartoons and animated, and it goes over different things scenarios of other kids that have the same type of issues, and how they kind of resolve those issues. And so it's like, I do like a short, 5-minute video with him, and we talk about what they did and see if he has any of those same, if he understands what those other kids are doing, and kind of talk it out. And it's just a small component of it, but it's effective with some. But what I've seen, just my opinion, was second and third, it's a little over their head, so I have to really pick and choose what I use for them, because it can start talking about stuff that brain development that they don't want to talk about that. So they get really, but they do. I think it's working for this one little boy. In fact, I did it today.
So it's an online program, specific, and then there are areas that are specific for absolute specific
yes,
things.
Like anxiety
Okay.
and things
Okay.
like that.
I just wondered.
Yes. Anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for Higgins Comprehensive School Counseling Program, all our programs are pretty similar as we use the same framework. Mine includes essential concepts of elementary counseling each campus strives to achieve. It includes program definitions, mission statement, delivery components, content areas, program rationale, needs, priorities, and goals. I have included in my program for Higgins a tentative outline of the year for delivery of content, their whole group guidance lessons, small groups, and individual counseling sessions. This outline is ever-changing due to growing needs on my campus, such as response to disruptive behavior. Also listed are curriculum resources. However, these are also updated throughout the year as I find new resources, or I specify for individual or whole group needs. Some examples of resources I use are the Goes In. I mainly use that for small groups. And then I use a superhero theme, social emotional learning objectives for first grade, introductory to social skills for kinder, and then I use a pre-introductory for pre-K. Whole class guidance and small groups are my primary focus due to the ability to reach a large number of students with the important content areas, such as, but not limited to, bullying, kindness, recognitions of feelings, and emotional regulation. Finally, as the program is tentative, evaluation of the program is included in an effort to improve implementation each year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Tiffany Page. I'm school counselor at Parker. Like you've heard, our CICP is presented through 4 delivery components: guidance curriculum, individual planning, system, responsive services, and system support. I just want to highlight a couple areas for my plan. A goal that is highlighted is a needs assessment that I need to do, and it's basically, I will send it to students and staff and possibly parents, and it's just to see what needs my campus needs, basically. And that's a goal. A need that is highlighted in my plan is more group counseling. I've especially seen a jump in that this year with the topics of anxiety and stress management. A couple highlights from last year and that are rolling into this year is Unity Day. We all celebrated that, spreading kindness and acceptance of all. Red Ribbon Week, we talk about making healthy life choices, good choices. A virtual presentation of the NED show, which NED is N is never give up, E, encourage others, and D, do your best. And then we had a virtual career fair at the end of last year. Along with individual counseling, I also provide character development lessons using our core essentials program that we purchased this year. And incorporated into all of these are social and emotional learning for all students. And an example would be practicing mindfulness, which is one of my favorite lessons to teach, self-control, and self-regulation. In the end of my plan, you will see roles and responsibilities of the year. However, these change from day to day. Sometimes we walk in the door and we never know what's going what our day is going to look like. And sometimes our days are paused for a student crisis, and all of us know that our students come first and our other responsibilities are put on hold. And especially this year, we have seen so much response and our students need us, and it is so important that we put them first. And I'm very passionate about it, if you can't tell, but and all of us really, really are. We just want to be the best school counselors that we can.
Thank you.
I'm Keitha Kalupa. I'm a counselor at Bailey, and our programs are very similar in what we do. The way we do them may be a little bit different. I think most of us use Goes In. I've been using it for several years now, and it provides so much for us. It's our social emotional learning that we can do in the classroom with every student, and then those smaller groups, they do anxiety, they do panic attacks, depression, and they just put out a new one for anger that I'm so excited about, because that is a lot of what we're seeing. As we've been through this pandemic, our mental health needs have jumped. They have doubled. I've been doing groups for a while now. That's my favorite part of what I do. I do a needs assessment at the beginning of the year, and my students tell me what they would like to be in a group with someone who, another student whose parents are in jail, or they would like to be in a group with students who are parents are divorced, or if they have a lot of anxiety, or if they've had a parent die. I have a grief group every year, 10 to 12 kids, 4th and 5th grade, and we've been doing it for years. Those small groups they look forward to them so much, and that is my favorite thing that I get to do with them. Another thing that we do, and I know that they do too, that is really good for our kids, is we've started doing 2-minute meetings, and it might not sound like much, but we literally sit for 2 minutes with every student in our whole school. So in those 2-minute times, you might find a student who did not respond to that needs assessment because they were maybe afraid to, or they didn't know what it meant. But when they sit with you just one-to-one, even if it's just for 2 minutes, they have an adult's full attention. Things come up like, oh, I didn't know that about this person. Their teacher needs to know that. The principals need to know that. I need to start working with them. Just another way that we pick up other kids that we need to see. So our groups and our 2-minute meetings are my favorite thing that we get to do. Like they said on our plans, there's a lot of stuff in our plans, but they change, and they are our pie in the sky dream that we get to all of it. We don't get to all of it, especially in a pandemic year, last year and this year. I know that for these guys, they just deserve so much on their campuses. They've been doing a lot of restraining, a lot of physical restraining of littles at Higgins, at Everett, at Parker. All of them have been doing that, and it's a lot. It's a lot. These kids are going through a lot while they were at home. A lot of us had a great pandemic. I had a great pandemic at home with my family. I loved it. But so many of our kids were watching a lot of violence. They were being abused. They were hungry. So when they got back to us, their needs were way more than when they left. So all of the other duties that we have, we're really happy about the Senate Bill 179, and we're happy that Dr. Chadwick and Kelly are already trying to make plans to help us with that next year. Taking some of those testing and 504, a lot of the paperwork things that counselors used to have a lot of time to do and now have no time to do because we're responding to these needs. And our whole day that may have been scheduled for one thing may be spent literally with just one student that is in crisis. And then maybe with their family, if we get their parents involved, that's another part of our job is working with the families. Our principals have been so good this year to help us with that and really focus on a team effort to take care of our kids. So that's what we do. Do you have any questions?
Who now is doing the 504 plans and the and the testing? Y'all are still doing that too?
We do all of that.
On top of all this?
Yes.
So when in the world do you ever have time to meet individually with all these students, or even in groups?
Well, there are times that, I mean, it's hard.
When do you fit this
You really
in?
have to triage. I mean, just this year, it was on a testing day doing interim. We had a parent that was very upset in the office. We're trying to do online testing, and we had a student that was suicidal all at the same time. So in those moments, you have to triage and pick what comes first. Well, in that moment, that kid comes first. Call for some backup to help with this parent, Ms. Compton and Dr. Chadwick and whoever else that we could get to help us with online testing. But it's a balancing act, and I'm so grateful that we are already looking at when our counselors met last week at a district meeting, Dr. Chadwick was talking about having
a job description written up, looking for people who would be qualified and leadership material to step in and take, because 504 is important, very important, and so is testing. But we need some help with that so that we can do our primary job, which is just take care of our kids. Every hour that we're spent doing paperwork on testing is an hour that we could spend with a kid, in real interaction, or with their parents, giving them resources. That's our main job, and that's the part that we really love. That's what we went to school to do. That's what we're trained to do, and so we're so excited about that. So we're getting through this year. We're like, we can do it, y'all. We can do it. There's some hope. There's some hope coming. So we're grateful to the board, Kelly, Dr. Chadwick. Thank you for that. Any other questions?
Thank you. All right, we're going to need a motion to accept their comprehensive plans. Motion made by Bo, seconded by Sheila. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, Superintendent Report. Ms. Stewart?
Okay, the month of January is School Board Appreciation Month, so principals, if you would, please come forward. We want to thank all of you for serving on our school board. This is a non-paid position that requires a lot of hours and dedication to the district, and for that we are truly grateful. The shirt in front of you, or the jacket, is actually from the North Lamar administration team, and then each campus has a presentation for you. So, Ms. Malone, we'll start with you.
Okay. So I asked different classes to take a different school board member, and so we've made some different projects for each of you. And I had this all together. I promise I did. Hope you enjoy our artwork. All the little no. Thank you. And we appreciate everything y'all do for us and your hard work.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Compton, would you like to go next?
Ms. LaVoy offered to move the posters. She's going to help some of those that we do with that.
Oh, cute too. Yeah. Sweet. Oh, and then.
Some of our classes are kind of hard, so just going to kind of randomly hand it out for y'all to thought. And there's some pretty nice notes in here.
Always look forward to it.
I do too, of what they think.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Compton. Ms.
Thank
Hughes?
you.
and made something for it to be the class too. So these are the little. Three.
Donut, estimate. This one here, so now we need to start wearing masks.
From our third graders.
Thank you so much. That is awesome. All right, let me grab this for my so cute.
Thank y'all.
First graders. And second grade, they just signed. And
So our advanced art students, so we switch littles to they did some of the best posters for you guys. There's several here, just showcase a couple of them real quick. And here's the best. Good ones here that I'm sure will hang up around the room. Thank you. And lots of special messages here, so we'll get these hung up, and then one of our employees made something very special for you. I asked her for just an idea, and she took off with it. These are each personalized and carved with your name and a special prayer on the back. So they're truly one of a kind, and she put her heart into this and had y'all in mind.
Thank you.
We appreciate all that y'all do.
Thank you.
I think I put them in order.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. Ms. Keith?
Part of our appreciation, last year I had Ms. Peel, our art teacher, create murals for each one of you. This year we wanted to kind of do something similar, but yet still different. Along with just a nice little special gift inside these bags. But I asked our CTE department, Kyle Penwell, to give you guys some North Lamar custom coasters for you to have displayed in your homes and offices and whatnot. But they're really, really neat. And but I can also tell you this, how much I appreciate what you do, because I have friends in other districts that have school boards that have a hard time with doing this. This is what is best for the schools here at this district. So every time you raise your hand and say yes for something that supports our schools and our teachers and our students, I can't tell you how thankful I am that you do that, because I have friends that are in districts that don't do that. And he says they say it is unpleasant. And so to have unification is very special, very, very, very special. So thank you all for that. You got these in order as well. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry about my secretary gave you a small bag. That was not unintentional. That was unintentional, I promise you. Read your bit. Thank you. Thank you so much. stuff for you. Gibbs did a great job. Each coaster has a different thing on it, so.
Thank
Yeah. Real neat. All made of seniors. Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much.
Yes.
Thank you to our principals and thank you to our school board. We appreciate everything that you guys do for our staff and students. The next thing on the agenda is the election information. The next Board of Trustee election is scheduled for May 7th, 2022, with 3 open seats. That's Joel Sanders, Bo Exum, and Alicia Preston. The first day to file applications for a place on the ballot is January 19th, 2022, and the last day to file application for a place on the ballot is February 18th, 2022. Early voting and election day location will be held at the Lamar County Service Building at 231 Lamar Avenue, and early voting will take place April 25th, 2022 through May 3rd, 2022. Also, our Team of 8 training will be coming up. We had to change the date on that, so the actual training will take place on February 23rd, and that will be here at the Administration Building at 6 p.m., and we will serve dinner at 5:30 that night. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Just behalf on the board, again, thank you guys all for we appreciate it. We never expect anything, but we do appreciate it, and always look forward to the sweet kids. I know, so sweet, and they all did a great job, so thank you guys again. We appreciate all of you and everything you do. We'll move on to item 8, executive session. The board will conduct a closed meeting in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Chapter 551, subchapters D and E, and Texas Government Code Section 551.074. And we will now go into executive session at 7:12.